All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Vav and Yavamas. Yesterday was Daf Hey, so we got to do yesterday's first. So it's actually a long, continuous sugya we're going to be doing that we started. We're going to be continuing, and we left off as we've done the last two pages. And the first word, top line. So that was where we left off. Now. So we had a discussion of asay derech. Where does this come from? So this all comes from the source of that we have a case of yibum, right? Yibum, one is permitted to go ahead or is obligated to marry his brother's wife if his brother dies, right? So the question is, and our Mishnah basically states that anybody who is, if the woman falling to the brother is related to him somehow, then it's forbidden. And that's learned from Achos Ishto, right? That's from his wife's sister. So you need a pasuk telling you, Yavam Yavo Aleha, we learn from Aleha, that she's usher to you. Because if it wasn't for the pasuk, I would have thought that she's mutter. Why is she mutter? Because in Asay, the mitzvah of Yibum, is Daicha Alay Saseh of Achos Ishto until the pasuk says that's not true. So now we need to know, okay, where do we know that? From. So we brought the pasuk from tzitzis, seven fishim. So seven fishim were extra. So now, first word, top line, and Haman Aleph, Tinach, Litana de Rabbi Shmuel. And according to Rabbi Shmuel, it works out good because if he's the top Rashi sort of brings you in, right? I'm just reading for the top Rashi. The isolated seven fishim, right? Over there, it's actually a seven fishim, right? El Rabbanan less begadim, but according to Rabbanan, they don't darshan the word begadim. Right, because they said Tzar Pishtim is obvious. We know that because it says Beged already, and Beged at another place we know means Tzar Pishtim. So why did you repeat Tzar Pishtim? It must be because it's extra. But according to the Rabbanan who don't learn Tzar Pishtim, and Rashi said Tzar Pishtim let me answer. So Menalu who asi v'deichaloy say I'm just reading that was the rest of the Rashi, right? So from where do we know if there's no extra psukim by tzitzis? So where do we know that asi v'deichaloy say? So back in the Gemara. So Tinach l'tanah Shmuel. So the Gemara answers not me Rosho. We learn over there from Rosho, from the pasuk of by Rosho the Tani learn a brayso what pasuk Rosho. It says over there Rosho. So it says over there that then the seventh day of by a Mesorah that he has to go ahead and remove his hair. So it says his entire head Rosho. So what does it say? You remove all the hair, right? The pasuk says, I'm just reading the pasuk. The pasuk, you shave all his hair. Es rosho, right? You already shave his hair. All his hair includes hair in your head, right? Why do you have to say rosho, his head also, right? So the it says, do not go ahead and round out the corners of your head. You might think that, hey, there's a prohibition not to go ahead and shave the corners of your head, right? And therefore, I might think that, even a Metzora is commanded not to shave the corners of his head. And when we say remove all your hair, do not remove your payas, right? So, therefore it says Rosho. Therefore, it says Rosho that you shave all your hair, even Rosho, even your head, even your payas, right? Even the corners, you go ahead and remove. So, in other words, over here, what do you see? It's an asay, right? And it's daicha loisasay. The asay of Mesorah, removing your hair, is daicha the loisasay of don't remove your payas, right? Because savar haitana covers kol rosh shmei kafel. And according to this, right, there must be according to the opinion that to remove, right, that you might, there's an opinion that holds if you remove all the hair of your head, you haven't violated anything, right? Because you remove everything, it's not a corner because you remove everything, right? It's only if you don't remove everything. So according to this opinion, this was even if there was a potential isser by shaving your entire head, right? I know corners, so there's still an isser, and therefore the asay is deichaloy saseh. So you see an asay is deichaloy saseh here. So Gemara says no. Rather, we'll say, no, maybe the isser of shaving off your payas is different. It's a lighter type of avera. Why? It's not an avera that applies to everybody. It doesn't apply to women, right? A woman could shave her. There is no isser of shaving your head. For kids, right? Our wives, they all, shave their heads because, when they go to the mikvah, right? So they shave their heads, right? So So you see over here, nevertheless, right? Yeah. So you see over there. So maybe since it's a lighter type of mitzvah, doesn't apply to all. That's the reason why it's doicha. That's the reason why it's pushed off. So maybe we need another source with a regular lav that applies to everybody, right? So Ella, Asya Mizikno, right? Rather, let's learn from the pasuk of Zikno over there. And by this pasuk is written by the Kohanim, right? Those who served in the Beis Hamikdash. The title of the Brayso says Zikno. Right, the pasuk over there says, like, right? It says zikenam loigalechu, right over there. So it says over there the corners, right? In terms of for their beard, right? Maybe a Kohen who's a Mitzvah, right? Kohen who's a Mitzvah, so he has to go ahead and remove his beard, right? So it says you can't remove it. So maybe, but it says by a Mitzvah, you have to remove all your hair at day 7. So Tamalayim, therefore it says Zikno. Maybe you think that even you can't go ahead and remove your beard if you're a Kohen, right? You can't move it at all, even if you're a Mitzvah. So maybe I think that's so. Therefore Tamalayim, therefore it says Zikno. It says remove Mr. When you're a Mitzvah, right? Do your head and your beard, right? The pasuk says, right, as Roshav as Zikno, right, as Zikanos, right? Now, so you're going to go ahead and say, okay, it's an obvious question, right? We just said that Payas was an example of a lav because it only applies to men. Well, this only applies to Kohanim, right? Not only just men, but it's only Kohanim with men, right? So where it says, if you can't apply it to a lav that it's ases deichalos say in terms of a lav that it doesn't apply to everyone, all right? So so now because that was already covered in the case of Rosho, so therefore we have to apply it to another case. Apply it to a case, and we'll say it applies to cases of a lav that is shaveh b'kol. So Gemara says no, no, we still need it for something else. It's not ases deichalos. Why? Maybe by Kohanim, since they have extra commandments, extra mitzvahs, afilu lav shin shav b'kol loidachi, right? Even a lav that's not shav b'kol, maybe since it's by Kohanim we're very careful, and therefore maybe even a lav that ain't shav b'kol is not doicha. Kamash b'lon it is, kamash b'lon dachi. So Ella asya mi Rosho. Let's learn from another source. It says Rosho, right? So this over here says by a Nazir. Right? It says by a Nazir, right? You should not go ahead and bring. It says, koime neder nizra tar lo yavar al rosho. Right? Do not bring a razor upon your head. So the Tani Rosho. It says Rosho matam lo yalfishna tar lo yavar al rosho. Shemiani afmat sarav a Nazir. Now maybe a Nazir is commanded not to go ahead and shave his head. So let's say a guy's a Nazir. He's a Nazir li'oil. He's a Nazir forever, and he gets tzaras. So now he has to go ahead and become tahor, right? So prior tahor is shave your head. Well, which one should I do? Should I go ahead and not remove my hair because I'm a Nazir, or do I shave my, all my hair because I'm a Mitzvah, right? So Tamalayim, therefore it says Rosho, even remove your hair, even if you're a Nazir. So we see over here that the assay of Mitzvah of remove your hair is deicha, the lice assay of a Nazir removing his hair. And therefore we have a good source for Asi Daka Leisa. Gemara says no. Nazir is different. Maybe the reason why the violation of a Nazir is pushed off, in other words, that you can go ahead and shave your head, is because the prohibitions by Nazir aren't so severe. Why? Because they can be permitted, right, to have a matir, right? You can go to have your vow or your nazirus nullified. Since I can have all the violations of nazirus nullified, it's not such a strong lav, and therefore that's the reason that we can say it should be pushed off, as opposed to a regular isser, let's say isser of achas ishto, right? So that's not something which is b'shayel. Dila temahachi. If you don't say that, the hag kaimalan the ein asi dechalois say, right? Because you don't say that, the evil we say that asi is not dechalois say, but asi ligma minasir. Right? Oh, excuse me. The hag kaimalan the ein asi dechalois say asi. right? We have a general rule that an asay is not doicha loisase in an asay, right? And that an asay, knows if you have to do something, you have a command to do something, and there's a prohibition. So we, as we established earlier by shatnez, and we're trying to establish also now, right? That which we say that asay is doicha loisase, but everybody agrees that if it's 1 verse 2, that the 2 wins. So over here, right, there's a special asay, right? Rashi brings it down of Kodeshia, right? Says it there, right? Right? You should go ahead, by a Nazir, it's don't bring a razor upon you, and you should be Kodesh, right? You should be Kodesh by growing your hair out. So that's an asay and a lois asay, right? And you want to say, right, that now we see that Matzora's asay is doicha and asay and a lois asay. Okay, right? So the Gemara be Nazir, learn from Nazir. So Ella, rather Nazir be Nazir, my tabloid Gamrin, and rather, why do we say that we can't learn out from a Masorah that you shave your head, even though it's doiche loisas and asay of Nazirus? Why? Because that over there is the prohibition over there is a light prohibition because it's able to be nullified, right, by a Beis Din or by Talmid Chacham, right? Hachanami, so over here we can't learn in a regular case of asay doiche loisas hachanami l'mikvah shechen yesh b'sheva. So to over here we can't learn. So therefore we cannot go ahead and use Nazir as the example of where we see an asay as doicha loisase because it does not. So Ella li'olam, rather we'll say mikra kama. Is that the next one? Yeah, mikra kama. Very good. Mikra kama, turn the page. Let's go back to the pasuk of we from step 1, right? Let's go back to there. And your question was, okay, in the pasuk, you wanted to say it wasn't extra because Elizabeth Shanlis Semru Pishtim Yachtov, right? And Semru Pishtim, you said it was not extra. So what's extra? The pasuk they can darsh from. Im Kain Lei Makra Tzitzis Taselacha. Why does the next pasuk use the lashon of tzitzis? Right, we saw tzitzis earlier, right? When it introduces the mitzvah tzitzis, why doesn't it say over here? Tzitzis taselacha gedilim lamali. Why does it say the word gedilim fringes? Shmamino lefnuye must be that it's extra, and therefore that's the extra part of the pasuk. So Gemara says no, the word gedilim is not extra. Right? No, it's come to teach you how many strings you need, right? It says gadil is shnaim when it says a fringe is 2 because it's 2 things intertwined, so it's 2. And gadilim is arba is 4, right? So asa gadil, right? Right. So it says over there. So it's telling you to go ahead and make a deal, right? Go ahead and make it, and then have it hang from there. In other words, you have the 4 knotted together, and then you have the strings hang from there. So the word gedilim is actually teaching halacha. It's not extra, right? We want to say if it's extra, then you can darshan asay doicha loisase, but it's not extra. So in kain lemakra lois silba shatnes. Okay, so don't just say lois silba shatnes semer pishtim. Don't wear shatnes. Semer will live. Yachtov lamli. Why say the word yachtov at the end? Maybe say it's extra. So I guess no. Yakati boile. So they say it's we need it. Why? Let's say chifas chibur. To teach you, right, that sewing 2 knots is considered to be that's attaching. That's chibur. That's shanis. But if it was 1 stitch that was connecting wool and linen, ain't no chibur. That would not be considered. So therefore, you need the word yachtov to teach you that it needs to be 2 knots there. Okay, so then right, Shatan is lamali. Why does it say the word shadis? Right? May the teacher that's extra. So I said no. Right, we're in Hamid base. Ad shehei shavat taviv, right? Until over there that the string, right, that it's used, right, that it's smooth, that it's spun and it's woven. So those are qualities in terms of the threads that's used. So that's learned from the language of shatnez, right? Shavat taviv, right? So ella kula mishatnez nafka. So rather, the Gemara says, you know what? From the word itself, shatnez, right? From the word shatnez, then since he uses the lashon of shatnez, so it's come to teach you both halachas. In other words, that's the fact that it says Shanas in this case, and it says Shanas over there in earlier, right, when it introduces the halacha of Shanas, which we said was in Vayikra, right? So over there, so since he used the lashon twice, the Shanas, so therefore it's extra. He didn't need to say it a second time, and by the time he said it a second time, therefore it is considered to be extra. And if it's extra, we can darshan. Why do you have an extra time? It must be teaching you to that there is smuchim, and asay is deichalois asay, what we learned from tzitzis. So therefore we've established from tzitzis, from the pasuk of Shanas, both according to the Tana Beit Rabbi Shmuel and even the Rabbanon, that tzitzis is there's extra wordage over there, and therefore we darshan smuchin asay is deicha alois asay.
So
fine.
Say that because Shabbos is a unique word, it's more than that drush of Shoah Noah and
right, and the nose, right? Yeah. So and it said it twice, once over there, once over here.
It does say twice.
Right.
Okay. Yeah,
Since it says it twice, so therefore we can learn from there. Now, this is all good. So you think the sugya is done here, but now it gets fun.
We're just getting started.
So Ashik, I'm just getting started. Exactly. Ashkan the asi v'deichel great. Okay, fine. So once again, remember, we introduced this whole concept because we needed a pasuk to tell us that do not go ahead and take achas ishto as your yavam, right? Because it's your wife's sister, and you can't be married to sisters, right? So this all works well. Asay greda, a regular law that one is obligated. That if one violates it, he gets malchus. However, in our case, we're dealing with a loisa say that involves a kares. One goes ahead and he lies with his wife's sister. It's chayv kares. So now, remember, we have a pasuk in the Torah, Yavam Yavo Leha, to teach you, right in the Leha we darshan, to say that your wife's sister is usher. I need the pasuk to tell me it's usher. If it wasn't for the pasuk, I would think it's mutter. I would think that an asay is doicha a loisa say sheish b'kares. So the Gemara wants to know. So loisa say sheish b'kares hey chashkan dedachi. So where do you know that? Now, so where do we find that we need the word aleha to aser? So let's learn from bris milah. So bris milah, because it overrides Shabbos. Shabbos is a kares, right? Overrides. So you do bris milah on the 8th day on Shabbos. So brisas. No, Mila is special because Mila involved the assay. It's not a regular assay. It's an assay that involves 13 covenants, and therefore there's more of a reason for it to be daicha alais assay. Shish bakaris. Okay, so let's learn Pesach. Mal Pesach shechein karis. Well, Pesach, we see that you can go ahead and bring it. It overrides Shabbos. Well, what do you mean? Well, of course it does, because it carries the karis in itself. If you don't do it, you're chayv karis. So let's learn mitamid, right? The karbanos that are brought, the daily tamid is brought on Shabbos, overrides Shabbos. So that is daily, that's done all the time, and therefore that overrides Shabbos. So okay, we can't learn from one of these. Let's learn from two of them. So which two you learn from? Even the two of them carry together. If you want to say, well, we see Milam Pesach lav sheish b'kares, kares shechein kares, because both those carry a kares. If you don't give a bris milah and you don't bring the current Pesach, it's kares. The Pesach v'tamid, Pesach shechein tzarich gava. Maybe those are unique. The reason that the kares is because they involve the karbanos. And the milah v'tamid shechein yeshna lifnei adibur, because those applied before Matan Torah, right? We know that bris milah was, right? That was before Matan Torah. They were commanded to give bris milah, and also, and where do you see the tamid, right? Those who remember, like a month ago, right? We had a whole machlokes whether the ola that they said that was described there by Sinai before was that the tamid, or is it the ola sriya? We had a whole machlokes over there in the Gemara, for a blot or two, right? So so therefore, since that was lifnei the dibur, therefore maybe that's a special reason, right? As opposed to, let's say, achazishto, it's not. So Gemara says u'mikulanami, And we can't even learn from a combination of all three that the Doicha Shabbos, which is a Lav Sheish Bakaris. Because all the rules in Dibur, right? Because the Karam Pesach also was, they did it in Mitzrayim, which is before Mount Torah. So Ella Yitzrich. Rather, let's go back. All right. Once again, this lashon of Ella Yitzrich, right, it's gonna be repeated a number of times. Every time it goes back to Ella Yitzrich, it means rather that we need the pasuk of Aleha to tell us that Achos Ishto is Aser. Because if it wasn't for that, we would think it's mutter of that an asay is dechalois to say she's bakaris. Ela Yitzchak sokdais. I would have thought tisimi kivarat. I would have thought to learn from kivarat. What do you mean? Titania, we learn in the Bible. Yachol kivarat veim deicha Shabbos. You might think to honor one's father and mother is deicha Shabbos, right? We'll soon see what the case is. Tamalei mar ish imo v'aviv tiro. That's Shabbos Tishmar. So it says over there, man, right? You should go ahead and fear your mother and your father, right? And guard my Shabbos. Kulchem chayavim b'chvoidi. All of you have to guard my Shabbos. In other words, you have to listen to your parents, and you and your parents have to keep Shabbos. All of you are commanded. So my lav, the Amarle Shachali Bishali, right? What's the case there? What are we talking about versus honoring your parents versus being Mechal Shabbos? Let's say your father tells you to go shech me an animal, right? Or go cook me a meal on Saturday, right? So maybe over there, I would think Asay is Deicha Leisa, say the Asay of Kivrav, right? Is Deicha the Leisa say Sheish Bakaris Shabbos. And the time of the Kasar Achmana, and we see the only reason why you don't do it is because the Torah writes, as Shabsai Tishmaru. Right, the Torah tells you, guard my Shabbos. Otherwise, I would have thought, right, halav hachi dachi. Otherwise, I would have thought that it is doicha. The loisa say sheish bakares. I would have thought my father said cook for him. I got to cook for him, right? So that maybe that's the roof. Versus low. We're talking about lav de mechamer. We're talking about the violation of mechamer. Mechamer is to lead one's animal, right? Top of the page on Daf Vav, right? So to lead one's animal. Now, a person is not allowed to go ahead and basically lead his animal on Shabbos, but it's not, you're not really doing anything, right? You're walking, your animal is following you and the animal's carrying stuff. So the animal's carrying your packages or whatever it is. So that lav is not one that has kares. Does not carry kares. Right, that's his own. Right, it's a regular lav. There's no kares there. So maybe that which says over there, right, that we're talking about. We're not talking about where the father says, "Cook for me," right, or do that. Maybe we're talking about a lav of mechamer, right? And even that, if your father says, "Hey, get your animal, bring the packages for me," right? And I want to go ahead and get the animal and bring the packages for me because man, I'm not kares because I'm not doing anything. The animal's doing all the malach. The animal's carrying it. I'm just leading it, right? So leading it is not. So maybe, right? We see over here that the asay of kivrav is not doicha, the regular lav of mechamer. So Gemara says, Ella, the kaim alon the asi v'doicha lois asay. Wait, so with that being said, that you normally establish an assay, like we saw by tzitzis, is deicha lois assay. Ligbor mehacha. Let's learn from this case where the Torah tells you that don't listen to your parents, right? To violate a regular lav, ligbor mehacha d'loy lidchi. Right? Let's learn from here that an assay is not deicha lois assay, right? Because you don't listen to your father when he tells you carry those packages with your animal on Shabbos. So if you want to say, well, in general, maybe the reason why it's not doich in this case is because this, even though this lav itself is not a lav that has kares, but it's involved in a lav of Shabbos, and Shabbos is something which is chomer, and maybe that's why it's not doich, right? So we have another example where we're discussing this exact issue. And they don't ask over there, well, maybe Shabbos is more stringent because there's some malachas of Shabbos that do involve kares and Mises Bezdin, right? The Tanya, we learned about, so what's that case? Yachol Amarlo Aviv Hitame O Shamarlo Al Tachzir. So a person is walking with his father, the Kohanim, and the father says, go in the base kvaros, right? To get that object over there, do it, which is a violation, right? The Kohen should not go ahead and make himself tameh, right? So the father says, "Oh, go in there and grab that package for me," right? And it'll become tamei. Or he says, "Al tachzir," right? Or they left right. They went outside, and he says, "Don't go back and return that lost object." The person's obligated to go ahead and pick up a lost object, right? He says, "Al tachzir yachol yishmalo." Maybe you think to his father, right? Therefore, learn imo v'aviv tirav Hashem sat nishmaru. Right? We will bring this pasuk of a man, right? He should fear his parents, and Shabbos you should guard. All of you are obligated to keep Shabbos, right? So what do we see over here, right?
Those are not isurim associated with Shabbos, right?
So those are right. Those are regular lavim, and that is learned out from Shabbos. So you see, the lav of mechamer on Shabbos is just considered to be a regular lav. Right. So the lav Shabbos is a regular lav of mechamer, and therefore it's not the asay is not doicha. So just like over there, the case you don't listen to your father, asay is not doicha lois asay, and over there, so that's good. So the Gemara says no. Elam should yeah.
Why should the clause Ve'Hashem Sosai Tishmoru
that so that teaches you
have a reference to other mitzvah.
So because it's an example of where you had an asay versus a regular lo saseh, and we say the lo saseh wins out. So the Gemara wants to compare that to other cases that are regular lafim. So the Gemara in the end says no. Ella, right? There's a lot of tumult as to how to understand this word Ella over here. So Ella mishum dikla mifrach malihinach shechen hachshemisva. Ella, says Rashi, really we're going back where we're not talking about a case of mechamer. We're not talking about a case of where his father says, carry that package on your donkey and bring it to me. We're not talking about that case. We're talking about the case where the father says, go ahead and cook me a meal on Saturday morning. I want a nice cooked dish Saturday morning. And you don't listen, right? The Torah teaches you not to listen. Otherwise, I would have thought, right? So what's the question? Over there, the reason why I needed a pasuk to tell me I don't cook on Shabbos is because the only way, now this over there, the lashon hechsher mitzvah is actually used completely different than the normal way we use hechsher mitzvah. Normally we use the word hechsher mitzvah. It's like a secondary part of the mitzvah. Hechsher mitzvah, it's like, enhancing the mitzvah, something to do with, part of the mitzvah. Over here, I use the word hechsher mitzvah as like the exact mitzvah. My father wants me to cook him a dish. There's no way for me to cook for him. His cooking for him is the exact malacha which I'm forbidden to do. So the Torah has to teach me, do not fulfill kibbutz aim by doing this, right? But when it comes to yibum, I could do chalitza. I could do the mitzvah. So maybe it could be, right, that in the case of yibum and chalitza, maybe my wife's sister is mutter. I can fulfill it another way. I can do chalitza. Right? So since I can do chalitza, so it's not a direct, right? So therefore, it's not a direct proof, right? It's not a direct proof. So therefore, we have to say in this case, when it comes to, this is not a good source, because this source over here was teaching, why would I have thought to go ahead and do it? I would have thought to go ahead and do it because that was the only way to fulfill the mitzvah of kibbutz avim. Therefore, I need a pasuk to tell me that don't cook for your father on Saturday. But when it comes to yibum, right, I don't need a pasuk to tell me anything, right? I wouldn't have thought it was mutter, right? I think it's awesome because there's another way to fill it. I don't have to have yavo. I don't have to have relations with her, right? Rather, I can do chalitza. So we need a new source. Let's learn from Binyan Beis Hamikdash. The time of the Nebraisa. Binyan Beis Hamikdash Deicha Shabbos. You might think the building of the Beis Hamikdash Deicha Shabbos. Tamleimer as Shabbos Tishmeru. Comes teach you as Shabbos Tishmeru. I don't have a. All right, fine. So it says over there. Right. It says as Shabbos Tishmeru. Mikdashi Tiro Ani Hashem. Right. That's the pasuk. So over there, it's linked. Right, the mikdash you should fear, right, similar to the case of parents, and right, Shabbos Tishmeru, right? So he says, "Tamalei as Shabbos Tishmeru, umikdashi tiro, right? As Shabbos Tishmeru, mikdashi tiro, kulchem chayav michvaydi." All of you are obligated in my honor. So my love, the baina, the seiser. We're not talking about building and taking down, which are direct malachas and Shabbos, right? And the only reason why it's not deiches Shabbos, is because the Torah commands you guard my Shabbos. Otherwise, halaf hachi. If it wasn't for that, dachi. It would have I would have thought it overrides it. I would have thought that doing the aseh, building the Beis Hamikdash, overrides Shabbos. Same thing. I would have thought that doing yibum with my wife's sister overrides the yisur of being with one's wife's sister. God says, no. Over there, it was not telling you don't build or take down on Shabbos. That, of course, that involves kares. Rather, I was talking about even a lav de mechamer. We're talking about the lav mechamer. Don't schlep building materials on your animals on Shabbos, right? Even though it's a regular lav, because we're saying it's not the asay of building does not override the regular lois asay. So now the Gemara says same thing we said on top. What? You already established that an asay is deichalois asay by tzitzis. Ligmar mehacha. Let's learn from over here that you can't even have your animals schlep the building materials to the Beis Hamikdash. That it does not override the lois asay. So and if you want to say, oh no, maybe Shabbos it doesn't override a regular lav of Shabbos of having your animals schlep for you, right? Because Shabbos is more chamer because there's types of malachas and Shabbos that are, chayiv kares, and so this is like in the category of Shabbos is chaver. But Tana B'Alma, okay, we have a regular brisa, right, where we compare regular mitzvahs to this. Right, exactly what we said on top, right? And we didn't ask over there. Did Tani with the brisa? Yachol Marlo Aviv. He told me, oh, Shomer Lo Adaksa. You might think they're walking with the father, and his father says, go ahead and retrieve that package, become tameh, or don't go back and get that package. Yachol Yishmalo. You may think that you should listen to your father Tamaloi, and therefore it says Ish Imo Aviv Tiro. We learned over there that a man should go ahead and fear his parents and also guard the Shabbos. And all of you, we say, over there, you do not guard, you're obligated to guard Shabbos, right, and not listen to your parents. And so too, it's the same thing. You're obligated to go ahead and do mitzvahs and now listen to your father when he says, don't pick up the package. So we know we made a comparison for other mitzvahs to Shabbos, and we don't say, hey, Shabbos is more chomer. We don't say that, right? Shabbos is regular. So Elam Mishum Igla Mifrach. Rather, why cannot we learn from the source of the Beis Hamikdash? Mishum Igla Mifrach Malina Shechein Hachsher Mitzvah. Because this itself is the Hachsher Mitzvah. In other words, when it comes to the Binyan Beis Hamikdash, this is the exact mitzvah. You're building it, right? So there's no other way to fulfill it. So therefore, since there's no other way to fulfill it, I might think that it overrides the Shabbos. Therefore, it says as Shabbos Tishmeru. But when it comes to the mitzvah of Yibum, right? I can do chalitza, right? So therefore, I wouldn't need a pasuk there. So actually, mitzvah.
The thing is
that
if you're married to the sister, see, there are two prohibitions.
Well, one of them is already permitted. One of them is your brother's wife is already permitted. That's the mitzvah. That we're not talking because that would be every case, right? That would be every case. But the mitzvah is to take your brother's wife, right? But there is no isser of your brother's wife after his death. There is zero isser. So the only isser in place is the other one. But we need to tell you that it's usser. So and the Torah has to tell you that it's usser. Otherwise, I would have thought it was mutter. So the whole question is, why would you think it's mutter? So maybe I would think, maybe it's mutter because Shabbos also they had to tell them not to build on Shabbos. Otherwise, it would have been permitted, and therefore you see that it is doichalois sheish b'kares. So say no, that case is different. That case over there, I had to tell you because that was the only way to fulfill the mitzvah of aseh of building the Beis Hamikdash was to do it on Shabbos. Was if you wanted to do it, you're going to violate Shabbos. So nevertheless, even though it's the only way to fulfill it, you still don't do it, right? But over here, I don't need a pasuk, right? Because it's not the only way to fulfill it. I just do chalitza. So the one says hechsher mitzvah teilemi hasam. Well, hechsher mitzvah we just said earlier, right? We just had the vort over there by kibbut avein. So why do you need to teach the same lesson twice? Teilemi hasam. So enachanami, right? If that's the case, so what do we need? What's going on in this pasuk over there? Guard my Shabbos and also my mikdash. You should fear. Salam alaikum. No, we need it. Look at the time we learn it. Right? So yachol yisyari adam in mikdash. A person should maybe just be scared for the mikdash. Therefore, it says, "As Shabsai Tishmaru." Ves mikdashi tiro. Nemra shmira b'Shabbos. Moira b'mikdash. It says shmira on Shabbos and moira and fear by the mikdash. Ma shmira hamura b'Shabbos. Just like the shmira, the guarding we say by Shabbos. Lo mishabbos. We're not scared of Shabbos, right? Rather, we're scared of he who warns you to guard Shabbos, i.e., we're scared of Hashem. We're not scared of Shabbos, right? So to the fear that we have in the Mikdash, we're not scared of the Mikdash. Rather, he who commands about the Mikdash. So what we talk about, the Mikdash. So what is this fear? Right, that you're supposed to have in the Mikdash. So loikanis ada b'harabayis v'makaloi v'nalo pundaso. A person should enter harabayis now with his staff, right, his walking stick, right, with his shoes on, right, his money belt, or dust at his feet. You should not go ahead and make a shortcut, rakika, and spit over there. So we are in this case, and spitting from kabachaymer. So that's the fear that we're talking about, the fear to treat the makom with respect. And I only know when the base of is kaim, it's actually base of kaim and Allah. Therefore, the pasuk says, "As my Shabbosim you shall guard." Just like the shmir we're talking about, Shabbos is forever. So to the fear and the honor that one serves in the mikdash is also liyah. Now, once again, we're going back to these two words. Ella, rather, going back. Why do we need the word Aleha by Yibum to teach you that it's forbidden to go ahead and take your wife's sister? Why would I have thought? Now, where do I know that? And why do I need the pasuk to tell you that it's forbidden to take her? So where do we see that an asay would be deicha alaysa say sheish b'karesh, right? To tell you that no, you don't take it. We learn from Havar, right? There's a pasuk that says leisivaru eish b'chol mashvasechem b'yom haShabbos. So thou don't kindle a fire, right? In all your mashvasechem, in all your places where you dwell. So ma tamaloyma, what do you teach there? So the girl says ma tamaloyma. What do you mean? There's one of the most famous machlokes in Shas. Either Rabbi Yossi Lav. So there's a whole question. We have 39 malachas, and then we have one of those malachas. Do not kindle a fire, right? Start a fire, right? It's taught on its own, right? There's no other special psukim for bishul and so on and so forth, and borer and so on, right? So why is there a special pasuk by Loisivaru Eish? So Rabbi Yossi, if it's going to Rabbi Yossi Lav to teach you that no, this actually is unique. This one is only a lav. You don't get kares for it. This is just a regular lav. All the other malachas, right, cooking and separating and plowing and so on and so forth, those are lav. And so those are regular kares. This is a lav. Either I'm not or I'm not. He said he teaches l'chalik. He teaches you to know that each one is its own separate isser. And if you do one of them, like kindling, right? Then you're chayiv kares for that, for even one. So he teaches the halacha of chiluk, and Rabbi Yossi says there's only a lav. The Tanya. So now, okay, this is what I meant to say. We learned in Brayso Havar the lav Yasadiv Rabbi Yossi. Avara according to is only a lav according to Rabbi Yossi. Or I mean the chalik. V'amer Rava. Tana Moshe was kakashile. No, we talk about why does it say Leisivaru eish b'chol moshe v'seichem in all your dwelling places. What's the lashon b'chol moshe v'seichem, right? Let's see. Shabbos chayvus hagufu. Right? Shabbos is a chiv on the person, right? The chayvus haguf naheges beimaris beinu chutzarts, right? So it's no egg everywhere. It's an obligation on the person. It doesn't matter where I live. Eretz Yisrael, not Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, I could be anywhere. So Moshe was because of Rachman Shabbos Lami. So why does it say B'chol Moshe Seichem? Usually it sounds like the places we live in Eretz Yisrael has nothing to do with Eretz Yisrael. Shabbos is everywhere, right? Shabbos Lamali. So Meshum Rabbi Shmuel. Amar Taman Echan. So Taman says the name of Rabbi Shmuel. The fish. Nemar the pasuk says V'chiyeh Beish Chet Mishpat Mos Maves. Right. It says Maves V'humas. Right. It says that a person has a Chet, a sin that he was basically sent off to go ahead and be killed. Right. He was Chayiv Misa. Shemeani Bein B'chol Bein B'Shabbos. So based on his obligation to put a person to death. When do they put him to death? Saturday or Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or even Saturday, like I said earlier, right? Even Shabbos. Mani Mikayim Mechalel Mos Yumas, right? So what does it mean Mechalel Mos Yumas? B'shar Malachos Chutz Mizas Basin. It says over there Mechalel Mos Yumas, right? It's talking about, right, if you're Mechalel in other Malachos except for Mizas Basin. In other words, that Mizas Basin is allowed to violate Malachos for the purposes of killing somebody who for his penalty for Shabbos, right? As we'll soon see, in terms of some of the punishments of Mrs. Bezdin involved malacha, right? Mainly streifa, right? So, I feel Mrs. Bezdin, or maybe I feel that Mrs. Bezdin is that the Bechala Mos Yumas, that even Bezdin cannot go ahead and be Bechala Shabbos even for the purpose of putting one to death if he's Chai Misa. Umani became Behumas, right? It says Bechol below Shabbos. In the name it says Behumas. You kill him only during the week, not Shabbos. So in Ella, feel Shabbos or even Shabbos. Therefore, it says Loi Sevar Eish Bechol Moshe Seichem. Right? Ulahalan hu Oimer v'Hayu Eilu Lachem Lechugas Mishpal Ador Seichem Bechol Moshe Seichem. It says there when it comes to regarding Beis Din, it says these are the judges, the chukim for generations. And there's that word again, B'chol Moshe Seichem. So you use the word B'chol Moshe Seichem when it comes to Beis Din. Beis Din, you're tied down to Moshe Seichem. And also, Havara, kindling, is Moshe Seichem. So we have a connection. So what's the connection? Ma Moshe Seichem Beis Din. Just like the word Moshe was said by Beis Din, Moshe Seichem Beis Din. So to over here, it's applying to Beis Din. So this pasuk, Lo Sevar Eish, is really talking to Beis Din. And it's telling you, do not kindle. In other words, how do you kindle a fire? When one is chayiv streifa, what happens for a streifa? You don't throw them into a fire. You don't make a huge bonfire and throw them in, right? That's how it happens, right? They burn lead and they pour it down his throat. So they got to start a fire. You start the fire for the lead and then you put it down his throat to kill him. And it's telling you, you can't do that on Shabbos. So that's what the pasuk is telling you. You can't override it on Shabbos. So my love Rab Nassi, the Amr Lechalik. Yes, so right. And over here, maybe we're going according to Rab Nassi. Rab Nassi knows that kindling is really chayiv koris, and therefore the reason why Lois Sevar Eish only come and teach you that each one is its own separate ister. So therefore, now kindling is a chayiv is chayiv koris, right? And the Torah, the Talmud, the Kazar Achman, Lois Sevar, and the Torah is telling you, do not kindle a fire. Right? Do not do a lav sheish bokares in order to carry out one's punishment of a person who's chayiv streifa. Halav hachi. But if it wasn't for this pasuk ali sivaru eish, right? Halav hachi dachi. I would have thought that it was doicha. In other words, I would have thought that the asay of Beis Din carrying out their punishments is doicha alois asay sheish bokares. Right? I would have thought that the asay of them carrying out the punishment is overriding Shabbos. So too, maybe I would have thought that the mitzvah of Yibum overrides the yisr of me being with my wife's sister, right?
Why? Because you could carry out the punishment the next day.
No, you can't.
Oh,
Right, but I would have thought, why do I need a pasuk telling me I can't do it? Why is the pasuk telling me lo yisavaru? Why is the pasuk telling me not to do it? Right?
why would I have a Hamamina that Beis Din should carry out the punishment
So let me ask you
on
this.
Shabbos?
Why would you need a
That was the
pasuk to
whole
tell me?
Gemara.
Why would I need a pasuk to tell me don't do it? Because if it wasn't for the pasuk, I would have thought so. No, if it wasn't for the pasuk, I would have. The thought is it's mutter. Comes the pasuk tell you it's us. But if it wasn't for that, so that's the lumdus over here.
If you could carry it out the next day, why would I think that I could do it on
Mishra
Shabbos?
Mavis Behumas. That was the whole Gemara. Behumas
Right.
on this day.
Oh.
And therefore the pasuk. So even that current, so the Gemara says low,
Yeah.
right? So the Gemara says no, low. Rabbi Yosi. So it says no, maybe it's Rabbi Yosi. So even if it's Rabbi Yosi, Tavinami, Rabbi Yosi, Amor, Rabbi Yosi, Havar Lav Yasa, Havar Garei Dasa, right? But no, it's okay, fine. Even Rabbi Yosi, you want to go to Rabbi Yosi? Let's do Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi says kindling is only a lav. Okay, so it makes sense, right? So even according to him, it's only a lav, right? So Garei Dasa, Havara the Beis Din Bishul Basilahu. But it's not just kindling a fire. You kindle the fire to cook the lead. You're cooking the lead. You're doing bishul. So even according to Rabbi Yosi, it involves an isser sheish bokaris. The other Rav changes Mali Bishop Sila, Mali Bishop Simanim, and says Rav Shei, doesn't make a difference whether you're cooking the ladder, or you're cooking the Simanim, both is cooking. So Gemara answers, no, I'm Rav Shimi Barashi. Ha-tana, loy mishum da'asi asi v'deichaleis. I say, el mishum de'maisi v'kama chove. It's not because of, I would have thought that an ase is deichaleis and sheish b'kares. And you can't, and then therefore you say, oh, that's the reason why by Yibur we need a pasuk. Rather, we would have learned it out from a kal v'chaymer to say that would have been permitted for Basin to put him to death. What's that bait? What's that kal v'chaymer? And how would I have thought maybe Michal one who Sumas if he was put to kill? Mishar Malacha is Mrs. Basin. It's referring to other malachas besides Mrs. Basin. About Mrs. Basin, Dacha Shabbos Mikal v'chaymer. But Mrs. Basin would be Dacha Shabbos from a Kal v'chaymer. All right, we're just going to turn the page and go into this a little bit as he started to throw us off a little bit, right? So he said, Uma avoda she chamura v'Dacha Shabbos. So avoda, which is chamur, right, and it's Dacha Shabbos, right, and it's chamur that Rashi points out. Just top Rashi real quick. She mayrotzech kohen, right? The guy was a murderer. He's a kohen, though. He murders somebody. Beis Din found him chayiv misa. They have to go kill him. He escapes Beis Din and he runs to the Beis Hamikdash, right? He wants to get his last avodah before they put him to death, right? So she mayrotzech kohen v'avreitz l'avod avod. The Beis Din sholchim avina lamus. Elim kenay agagol shemizber, right? No, normally they bring him back. In other words, they bring him back. So ma'avoda shehi chamura v'deicha Shabbos. So avoda, which is normally chamura, right? That, in other words, that we avoda that a person does in override Shabbos. Ritzicha deicha osa, but ritzicha is deicha shenamar passes mizbechi tichenu lamus, right? So in other words, from over there that we say that what's called from mizbechi, so it says over there from the mizbeach tichenu lamus, then he takes him out to die. In other words, that over there they would remove him. Shabbos shenicham be'avoda, but Shabbos which puts avoda einadin sheti ritzicha deicha osa. Right, so it's obvious that Ritzicha would be Doicha Shabbos. So the Kal v'chomer over here is teaching us that if maybe that we would say that since Shabbos is Chomer, maybe Shabbos, right? No, we actually would say that there was Shabbos is pushed off from, so it should be pushed off from Ritzicha, from Rotzeach. If avoda, right, is more important than Rotzeach, right, and avoda is more chomer than Shabbos, certainly Shabbos, right, is more chomer than so in that case than Rotzeach. So therefore, maybe in that case, we should go ahead and put that person to death. So maybe there's a special halacha that we put the person to death, and therefore that's the reason why we need a pasuk to tell you, do not put a person to death. Because I would have thought that since Shabbos is, we do malachas on Shabbos when it comes to avoda, so too maybe we could have done malachas on Shabbos when it comes to putting people to death from that kal v'chon. So therefore we need a pasuk to teach you that no, Basin doesn't put people to death. Uma just footnotes Uma or eno to kamar. So what was the other side of there? So hachi kamar that we said in the lashon over there. Right, we said over there, Eno, right? So it says, Romani Humas B'Chav Shabbos, Eno Ella Afilu Shabbos, right? So what was Eno? So my Eno to Kamar. So Achi Kamar Kavuras Meis Mitzvah Tochiach, right? When it comes to bearing a Meis Mitzvah, Shadeichas Avoda, Vein Doichas Shabbos. That is Doicha Avoda. In other words, that if a person has a Meis Mitzvah, there's a body that no one else is taking care of. You have to go ahead and bear. So that is Doicha Avoda. You should go ahead and do that and not do the avoda, but it's not Doicha Shabbos. We don't do it on Shabbos. And Hadar, so there, no, that was the other side to say. And Hadar Amar, no, Kvura Meis Mitzvah, Titcha Shabbos, Mikav Chomer. Even on that, it says, no, the bearing of Meis Mitzvah on Shabbos should Doicha Shabbos to a Kav Chomer. Ma'avoda, she Doicha Shabbos, avoda, which is Doicha Shabbos. Now, so you do avoda on Shabbos. Kuras Meis Mitzvah, Doicha Meis Mitzvah is Doicha doing the avoda, right? So, Melachaiso, from the pasuk of Lachaiso. That we learn from the pasuk of Achaiso that a person becomes tummy. Normally doesn't become tummy, but this darsha for the extra pasuk of Achaiso that it is doicha, right? So Shabbos shenichim be'avoda. So Shabbos is push up avoda. Eno did shdei kfura meis mitzvah doicha asa. It's obvious that the kfura meis mitzvah should go ahead and should be doicha Shabbos. So Tamaloyma, therefore it says loy sivaru. Therefore it says loy sivaru that is not doicha that is not Doicha Shabbos, and also Beis Din is not also Beis Din is up for the death. Also on Shabbos. So no, neither one of them are lois tavar eish b'chol mashasechem, and therefore we can't learn out meis mitzvah to be doicha Shabbos, and we also don't learn out that Mrs. Beis Din is doicha Shabbos. Stop here. Tomorrow we will continue from Eretz Hashem.
Every line